President will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada.
We won't relent until tariffs are removed, and of course, everything is on the table.
This month felt like it would not end, and now that it is, it feels like it came out of nowhere. So, breaking news here, as Trump is indeed going to be implementing tariffs on several countries, including Canada, that I'll be focusing on in this video. And the ones that are going to be hurt most by this are Americans. Part of the reason for that is because Canada actually plans to take care of its workers and companies that are going to be hurt by these tariffs. Don't expect Trump to do that. So I'm going to break down this story as well as get to Trudeau's response, what Trump is saying, and how Canada may be considering targeting Tesla in all of this, which is, I got to say, the best part of this entire news story. So wait for that. But first, let me start with how the day began, because this was supposed to happen March 1st. According to sources to Reuters, he was set to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico on March 1st. And then an hour later, according to Trump's own press secretary, no, that's not the case.
I saw that report and it is false. I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China.
All right, so not sure if there was some bad information that was purposely fed to reporters, but the tariffs are happening tomorrow, and I want to get to this clip from Trump. It's gonna be quick, don't worry. I know people don't want to sit here, watching Trump for 3 minutes. So they're quick clips, but I need to respond to some of this.
Mexico and Canada have never been good to us on trade. They've treated us very unfairly on trade.
All right, I addressed this in a previous video, I think last week, but I have to just mention how stupid this comment is. This is the guy that signed the USMCA, the trade deal to replace NAFTA. And he's complaining about trade. Then why didn't he fix it before if it's such a bad deal on trade? I guess it was your bad deal. So absurd. Let me get to the rest of this clip because he makes some comments here that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But it's going to be fun to break this down.
In oil, we have more than anybody, and we don't need anybody's trees. We have to free up some of the tree areas that we have. We have great lumber in this country. We have to free them up environmentally, which I can do very quickly. But we don't need what they have. And for us to be subsidizing Canada to the tune of $175 billion a year and subsidizing Mexico to the tune of $250 billion, $300 billion a year.
What's amazing about this is no one knows what the hell he's talking about. Anyone that knows anything, from what I am reading, people do not know what he is talking about. Because it's not a subsidy. It's a trade deficit, meaning the U.S. imports more goods from Canada than it exports. And on top of that, the numbers he's throwing out there are just pulled out of complete thin air. So to be clear on the trade deficit, the U.S. has been running a trade deficit since the 1970s. Trade deficits are neither good nor bad. It depends on the situation. It depends on the economy. It depends on what you need in terms of goods and services. So there is no, it isn't inherently a bad thing to have a trade deficit. And on top of that, the U.S. trade deficit with Canada is significantly smaller than that of countries like China and Mexico, even though Canada is the U.S.'s largest export market. So Canada is like 10th on this list in trade deficit. Like to target Canada is very bizarre. If you're worried about trade deficits, Canada clearly should not be the focus because it's not the problem. But this idea that you're going to cut off lumber, cut off oil, and be able to recoup that within your own means, within your own country immediately is completely insane. Of course, you're not going to be able to do that immediately because the whole processes are not there to do that. So you have to wait for the manufacturing to catch up, which could take years in order to recoup that. And then maybe you'll be able to meet the demand that replaces the trade that you were bringing in. But This is also it's also bizarre just to do blanket tariffs. There is no logic to any of this. This is going to directly hurt Americans because not only just the tariffs themselves, but because Canada actually plans to take care of the people impacted. So Canada offer pandemic level economic support if hit by US tariffs. Going on right here with about 20% of the Canadian economy and almost 2 million workers in the country reliant on exports to the US, the tariffs would hit hard. Quote, Canada will be there to support and protect workers whatever irrational decision is made south of the border, Labor Minister Stephen McKinnon told a news conference. Quote, workers will not pay the price for or bear the brunt of a tariff decision made by the US administration. Quote, if you want to know what we can do and what we will do, take a look at the government's COVID playbook. Take a look at how we supported people during COVID. Speaking to the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy for companies, as well as the CERB, which was the $2,000 a month that helped Canadians who were impacted by the pandemic. Now, the issue here is that Parliament, I would imagine, has to be in session to be able to deliver any future help to people that are impacted by these tariffs. And right now, there's a leadership race going on for the Liberal Party. That means nothing is happening right now. So hopefully things can get going. So some help can be delivered to people impacted by this. But this is where we get to one of the leadership candidates for the Liberal Party, Chrystia Freeland, and her fantastic suggestion. This has to be done. Freeland says Canada should target Elon Musk's Tesla in a tariff fight. Now, I have no favorites in this leadership race. I tend to lean more towards Mark Carney only because I think he's a better shot against Pierre Poilievre than Freeland does. But regardless, whoever is leader, right now Trudeau should take this up because this is what you need to do. Target the people that are closest to Donald Trump. She says, quote here, we need to be very targeted, very surgical, very precise. We need to look through and say who is supporting Trump and how can we make them pay a price for a tariff attack on Canada. The move would target Tesla CEO Elon Musk and other power brokers in Trump's orbit, along with powerful lobby groups such as Wisconsin dairy farmers. Tesla's chief financial officer warned on an earnings call earlier this week that tariffs could hurt the company's profitability. Good. This is exactly where a lot of the focus, I think, should be. Last thing here, I'm just going to play this clip from Trudeau and his response.
Right now, we're showing the new American administration that they have a strong partner in Canada when it comes to upholding border security, all while simultaneously underscoring that we won't back down, that if tariffs are implemented against Canada, we will respond. We won't relent until tariffs are removed, and of course, everything is on the table. Of course, I won't sugarcoat it. Our nation could be facing difficult times in the coming days and weeks. I know Canadians might be anxious and worried, but I want them to know the federal government, and indeed all orders of government, have their backs.
So Trudeau recently brought together all of the premiers, many of which are conservative, minus Danielle Smith of Alberta, who is far right and was going to be at Trump's inauguration until it was the inauguration was brought indoors. But I am so glad that, look, as many criticisms as I have of Trudeau, and I've done many stories of that nature over the many years he's been in power, I'm so glad that he is the prime minister and it's not Pierre Poilievre, because Pierre Poilievre, one of his closest, or I should say one of his biggest supporters right now on the American side is Elon Musk. How do you expect Pierre Poilievre to put up the kind of fight that is necessary when one of Trump's closest allies is a big supporter of his? So I got more coming on, Poilievre, maybe this weekend, because I prepped a different story that I was going to do, but we'll see when that comes out. But there has to be a focus here on Canadians standing together against this absolute bullshit. And it's good to see that leaders, whether they're liberals, conservatives, NDP, are not all, but many are on the same side of this in the need to push back against this trash.